Alright. So, back at it. Okay. So you want to ribbon that hair down nice and smooth. You want to use your middle finger and thumb to break off your first piece. And then use your pointer finger in between so that you can use your pointer and thumb to divide that next piece. You're going to hold between your middle and pointer and thumb and fold your hair down. You're going to keep tension on your braid with your thumb at all times, because if you don't, your braid is going to back off and you're going to get a puckery, weak braid. Easy, baby. Yep. She's just, you know, a baby.
Lovable.
I haven't braided this baby in a couple of years, but look how awesome she's being. She has no negative feelings towards me about the work I've done in the past. Otherwise, she might be a little more resentful or a little less willing to work with me. But almost there, sweetie pie. Now I'm going to take what's left and just divide it in half. And keep my braid, keep going. Fold and lift it up and slide it to the crest. Make sure that there's no slack in the hair. Okay. I hold the yarn in between my pinky and ring, and I slide it right up in between center and right. I'll grab it, flip it down, twist it down once, snug it, put my thumb on that braid, fold it, and then fold it again. This piece comes in between the left side and the center. You go. I grab between my pinky and ring finger, swoop it underneath, reach through, and snug it off. And this is just a good way to make sure that your knot end is tied tightly and that you haven't put the pressure of holding that braid in place on one of the two pieces of yarn, because breaking your yarn really sucks. Because you've done the whole process and then you're going to have to stop and go back and do it again because you broke your yarn, because when you were tying it, you stressed it. I'm going way too fast for you to try to learn from my hands at this point. I'm trying to get this part done. Okay. Awesome. Okay. So now I'm at that point where I've gotten almost halfway done with it. So I'm about to start my next point. I'm going to take my yarn and I'm going to clip it all off so it's the same length, because it really makes it easier to tie your knots if all the yarn is the same length. You don't want to cut it too short, because then you're really going to have a hard time making your knots. Okay, so my next is the latching through. Here's our latch hook. We all should know what a latch hook is, and you're probably going to want to get up a little high for this. And this side's fine. This side. Okay, if you can get it way up high. Now, here's our first X. You want to slide right in between the X. You don't want to split those plaits that you were so careful to make nice and straight. Right in the center and slide it through.
Okay, let's see if I can.
You probably can't see it that close, right?
Let's see where we are.
Slide it in. It comes out the bottom. I like to use my pinky and ring, hook it in, flip the latch closed with my pointer, and pull the yarn through. I keep my finger in the loop, ouch, so that I don't pull the braid end through the tail. And what I mean by that is pull it all the way through like that. You don't want to do that. So make sure that you hold on to, just hold on to the end of the tail through, flip it shut, slide it in, put it in, flip your latch hook shut and pull it through. Slide it in. And you want to make sure that you point the latch hook to the left, slide it in, put it in, flip it shut, pull it up. Slide it in, hold it, put it in, flip it shut. And this is just the next step. So we're going to go through and latch them all through, shut it, in, flip it in, shut it, in, flip it in, shut it. Now earlier I was talking about the most important thing that you can do to help yourself when you're learning to braid, and that's the knot. Now the reason that I like that knot is because since there's so little bit of yarn in it, it likes to turn right at that point, okay? It actually pulls the whole end tighter when you put pressure on it and pull it in. Uh-oh.
She's been loose all day.
Oh, okay. Well, then let's not worry
Or
about
she.
it. Okay, so, and when you pull your knots up, they actually go up into the crest and get hidden. You don't want your tail to stick out like that. You can see how it's just not underneath. If you turn it a little to the side and give it a little pull, see how it whoop, pops in and that hair flips down. Okay, we'll do it again. Turn it to the left and then pull it right in. Okay, turn it to the left and it pops right inside. Whoops, right inside.
Light is better.
Turn it. You can see how as soon as it goes in the right place, that hair just drops straight down. Pull it to the side and snug it in.
You might want to explain
Pull it
again,
to
the
the
light's
side.
better now.
Yeah, the light is much better here.
Yeah.
Pull it to the side, and you want to make sure you don't pull it all the way through. Okay? Put it to the side, pull it nice and snug up. Now, if you pull it too far, that's a palm tree. Okay? And you don't want to get that effect, so you pull it up and give it a little crease. I'm doing this left-handed the wrong side because I'm on the wrong side of the horse. Now let's do it correctly. Okay, because I always work doing this from the bottom to the top. I was not doing it that way because of that ouchie on my finger, but let's do it right. Turn the braid to the side, snug it up. Put your ring finger right there at the top and pull that knot up. You can see the top of that knot right there. Okay, see it right there? Grab that tail end and give it a pull down so that you're actually making a crease at the top. Pull it up, ring finger goes there, pull it in, grab the tail end and give it a crease. You're pulling up and holding with these fingers and pulling a little bit. That's what gives you a good crease at the top, and that's what makes sure that hair wants to lay flat, is the crease at the top. And the only way you get a good crease at the top is to use this kind of knot, because as you're pulling down and pulling up, it thins out and tightens down and gets tighter. Ring finger goes right at the base till you see that knot. Grab that tail end of that hair, pull up and down at the same time, and that's what makes the crease. Turn the braid tail to the left, slide it in. You can kind of use your thumb a little bit to work that in. Ring finger goes right at the top till you see that knot. Grab the tail end and give it a crease. Okay, turn the tail to the left. Use your thumb to kind of work it in. Ring finger goes right at the top. You're going to snug it in till you see the knot poke out right at the top. Grab the end of that tail, pull it down, and crease it.
Whoop. There's the hole.
Okay. I'm going to turn the tail to the left. I'm going to slide it up. I'm going to use my thumb, put my thumb right on that knot, put my ring finger right at the top. As soon as I feel that knot, with my ring finger right here, I'm going to grab that tail and give that a crease by pulling up with my thumb and forefinger and down with this thumb and forefinger. So you're pulling up and down, and that's what creases that knot. That's what turns that tail down and makes sure it wants to stay. And that's just stay in place until we can tie everything. Tie everything down. And you don't crank it through, you just work it through. Okay, you don't want to hear any hair ripping. You don't want that horse to start tossing her head around, because if you do that, you've made a compression point. If you've split a plait in half, you've created a compression point. And these are all good reasons for Mrs. Horsey to rub her braids. Okay, so to start tying, you want to flip the yarn over, make sure it's straight, and then form a triangle. Okay? I used to say crisscross, but you take your yarn, you do crisscross it, okay? Put your fingers inside and make a triangle. First the right side, and thumb on the braid, then the left side. Flip this left side back to make sure that there's no pucker on this side, and cross your hair. Always over the top. Once, twice. 1, 2, 3, and snug it down. Okay? 1, 2, 3. That's where you're going to tie, is right on that angle every single time. Now, I will crisscross it, and you can see that there's a figure 8 that forms right there. Okay? There's no knot right there. I will go once, twice. Now watch as I leave my finger inside that loop and help guide it. I'm still right in there with my finger, and I'm going to pull with my right hand, and it's going to slide right off, and it's going to tie that tail end right to the side of that braid. I'm going to go right over left, and then over the top once, twice, catch that hair once, twice, and finish that knot. Okay? Try it again. Crisscross, form your triangle. First the right side, thumb on the braid. Left side, flick that corner back. Snug it a tiny little bit and keep your finger on the braid, because if you feel that knot pop up, you have to start over again. If that knot that you've set is not seated correctly in there, it'll start to pull out. So, right over left, over the top, 2 knots. Whoops. And right there. You can see 1, 2, 3, but it doesn't look like that braid because we haven't taken the tension out of it. All we're doing is lifting that braid up and snugging it down. You don't pull hard. You don't have to crank on those braids, and this yarn is very weak. So then, you form your figure 8. You're just going, you're going over the right with the left, once, twice. Leave your finger in there. You can see how I leave my finger right in there and go right into that braid, and then help yourself put that knot right up on the other line. Okay? Once, twice. Now you don't see me catching much hair yet, because there's not an awful lot of hair yet to catch. Nice and straight. Form your triangle. Go underneath and use your pointer finger to work that hair in. You can see that there is a lot of hair to catch, and when you use your pointer finger and lift up like that, you can see I'm lifting the braid up. You don't want to catch that hair and interfere with the way it's laying. You've already creased it. You've already set it in place once, twice. Now I'm going to do a couple things here. I'm going to use the back of my nail to push that tail down. You see how I'm pushing that tail down a little tiny bit? I'm going to push that tail down and help align the knot on that line of the plait. Lift it up and snug it down. Make my figure 8. Once, twice. I think we're a little close. Pointer goes underneath the braid to lift it up. Help flick that tail end out of the way. And now you can actually see that there's a little bit of hair there to get caught. We'll go once, twice. Okay, you can see I've got my knot, and there's that hair. It's laying right over the top of that tail, and I'm going to pull with my right hand only. I'm going to make sure that it's snug and go pull. All that hair is tied into the knot behind the braid, and it's not going to come out because I got 2 surgeon's knots on there. Do it again, nice and straight. Form a triangle. Use your pointer to lift it up so that you're not interfering with that tail end hair. Slide right first, thumb on the braid, underneath. Flick the corners back, pointer finger, making sure you're not unseating that knot. Right over left, once, twice. I've tied my finger in there. I'm going to push that hair back, and I'm going to put that knot right where I want it and just snug it down. Okay? Not really hard, just snug it down. Make my figure 8. I'm going to leave my finger in once, twice. Finger under. See how I'm using my finger, even if it's a little hard to do, I'm tying that tail to the braid and giving it a point to twist around. That yarn is holding it in place. So I'm going to go once, twice, and I'm going to poke my finger through the hole that's formed here a little bit. You can see how that hair is behind the yarn, and I'm going to pull just with my right hand. And you have to do it kind of quick, otherwise the hair will pop out if it's really short. But there you go. See how I caught it there? If you miss it the first time, then you have to put 1 extra knot. Nice and straight. You form your triangle and your crisscross. Your pointer goes up underneath. Right side first, thumb on the braid. Snug the corners down. Finger on the braid to make sure the knot's not popping up. Right goes over the top. Once, twice. I leave my finger in the knot. I use my finger to push that tail back. And see how I'm aligning that knot on the plait line? Then snug it down. You're just snugging it down. You're not trying to, pull it real hard. All right? You make a figure 8. Okay? You're just putting a crisscross in it and then turning your wrist over. That's a figure 8. Once, twice. You slide it right up in underneath. First your right side, then your left side. And you've tied that knot, that tail end to the braid. And now this one's a little longer. You can see that tail end right here. Once, twice, and you're going to put your finger right under there. You can see how I'm in. There it goes. Nice and snug. And I was able to do that pretty slowly so you could see how it really wants to work. Okay. See, there was a crisscross there, nice and straight. You make your triangle. You lift it up with your finger so you can slide this side in first, thumb in the braid. Now the other side, snug it down. Right over left, once, twice. You leave your finger in the braid. You push the tail back. You line it up right where you want it to be, and then lift it up and snug it down. All you're doing is snugging it down and taking all the tension out. Nice and straight. Make your figure 8. Once, twice. Right back up. You lift your braid up so that you get your right side in first, and then you snug it up. Once, twice. Now, I always keep my pointer finger to center or right side so I don't interfere with that tail at all, because a longer tail is easier to catch, but your hands can get in the way. Form a triangle, lift it up. First right, then left, snug it down. Once, twice. Guide your yarn down with your finger till it's in the place. Slide it right off of your finger. Take the tension out. Make your figure 8. Once, twice. Lift so that you can catch all of that. There's your hair. There it's gone. Once, twice. Snug it up. Okay. The more you do this, the more repetitive time you have making braids. the easier it's going to be. The faster you'll work and the better your work will look. The more I explain, the harder it is for me to do. Because for me, it's a mechanism. It's actually harder for me to slow my hands down for my triangle. Push the braid up, lift it off the neck so that you're not going to interfere with how that tail lays. Slide it down and make sure that your corners are in tight. Once, twice. Tie my finger into that braid, push that tail back out of the way, and slide that yarn off of your fingertips. Snug it down. Form your figure 8. Once, twice. Lift it up. Slide that knot right up in. You can see the tail in there. Once, twice. Right on center. Help snug it in and pull. Right hand only. It's a sliding double hitch is what the knot is called. And then form your triangle. Help through. Once, twice. See how I'm pushing that tail back with my finger? I'm aligning that yarn on the plait that I want. Snug it down. Form my figure 8. Once, twice. Lift it up. See, the faster you go, the more your yarn behaves. That's the key, is to not let this be anything but a mechanism where you don't have to think about the next step, you just do it. Everything works better at real speed than it does in an exaggerated slow rate. Because the slower that you go, the harder it is to catch all that hair, especially in knot tying and tail catching. Snug it down, make your figure 8, lift up your braid so you can get that yarn underneath. Once, twice. Catch that hair. Once, twice. Close your knot. Okay. Form your triangle. Swoop. See how far I swoop my pointer finger up under there to make sure none of that tail hair has any reason to move from where I was set it the first time. Set my yarn, lift it off, snug it down, form my figure 8. Once, twice, lift it up, close my knot. And you can always tell if your underneath knot is not tight enough because there'll be puckers. It won't line up straight. Okay, nice and straight. Form your triangle. Pointer goes all the way up. First the right side, then the left side. You see my knots right there at the top? Once, twice. And you need to, when you're doing your knots at the top, make them up high, up over the center of your crest, and then bring it down. Roll it right down to the plaits that you want to catch it in. Lift it off, snug it down. Make your figure 8. Once, twice. Snug it underneath. Snug that knot. Once, twice. Once, twice. Okay? Now I'm going to tie the rest of these off at normal speed because I want you to be able to see how fast you can do this. I'm not sure the camera can keep up. My hands do tend to look like a blur sometimes. Right, baby? Go. Twice. Underneath. Tie. She's getting a little kind of antsy. She does not mind the attention because we're not being mean, but she's been standing here a while. You always want to try to put yourself in your horse's position. If you are forgetting that she is your best friend, then you're probably not the horse person that you thought you were. Don't ever forget that. You love your horse, eh? I love your horsey. Everybody loves their horses. That's why we're in this. That's why we do this. Because we love horses. And horses love us. Okay. Okay, you form your triangle underneath. Flick the tail back. Once, twice. Once, twice. I always use surgeon's knots. Because surgeon's knots don't back off. And that's just a fancy word, fancy schmancy word for double half hitch. But this is the knot a surgeon will use in many situations when they operate. And they'll sew you up. Once, twice, snug, twice. Catch my tail, once, twice, snug. Form my triangle, right side, flick that, left side, once, twice. I'm pushing that tail out of the way. I know, my camera person is going, she's tired too. It takes a while to do this job. That's why there's so many professionals that do it, because people get tired. You know, they don't practice, they don't realize how much work goes into this, and they get fed up, frustrated, and quit. They lose their tempers. Just say, oh, it's just not worth it. It's worth paying the money. Well, okay. That's why people are in business doing it. But there's lots and lots of people who don't want to pay the $50 every time. It's worth it to get up, spend the hour doing the job because they practice. People don't think it's a big pain. Okay, now this one has kind of fallen out a little bit. And since the crest is really thin, you always want to make sure. See, there's that knot. As it's come through, you want to grab that tail end and put a good crease on it. And form your triangle and do this. What I generally do is after I'm practiced and warmed up, I don't go back and set all my braids. I just braid. I just do the job and set each braid as I go to tie it, so it doesn't have time to wiggle. See how this one's wiggled out? Let's set it right back in. You can see the knot. You want to grab that tail end, give it a good crease, and as you remember, when I was doing it the other way, I wasn't really creasing my knots because I was using my wrong hand. Okay, see how I just messed that tail up because I wasn't doing it right? There, I gotta redo it, set it in, put a nice crease in it. Make your triangle. See how I didn't move it that time? It all stayed in place. If you start to see it separate like that, you've already lost. All right, let's try it this way. Put the crease in, put a one simple knot in. That's cheating. And you only want to do that at the end when the crest is so thin that it won't hold that tail end in place. But do everything else the same. Now you'll notice that this braid doesn't really lay in as tight as the other braids do. And that's because of that simple knot that you put underneath. While that will hold the tail in place, it does not let the braid snug up right. So I don't encourage people to do that unless you absolutely have to. It just doesn't set down quite right. I know, she's such a good girl. Okay. So now we've finished the whole process. And what you need to do is go back and trim off those ends of the yarn as short as you can get them, but you don't want to cut the knot. Because cutting the knot means it's all going to come undone and all that work you just did is for wasted. Because if braids fall out, boy, you'll look like an amateur. You want to have nice sharp scissors so that you don't fray the ends of the yarn. Now for practice braids and for learning, those look pretty good. Not great, but pretty good. If you can do this after